Welcome to the Discovery Podcast, the show where we unbox, discover, and discuss the latest drops in personal and professional development. We're being brought to you by ZenBox. Take control, download ZenBox on the App Store today, and begin your journey of discovery and self-elevation. I'm your host, Andre Paolo, and I'm here with my special co-host, Melissa Spadafora. And today we're going to be speaking to one of our very good friends from all the way from Southern California, Allan Isbell. What's going on, brother?
Hey, what's going on, Andre?
Good. Glad to have you here. This conversation has been a long time coming. I know we've had a lot of conversations over Skype and WhatsApp over the last year. So for me, it was like especially important to get you on one of these podcasts so that we can share a little bit of some of the discussions that we've had, especially about mindfulness and men's health, which is something that I feel needs a voice and someone like you, a leader like yourself, that's doing a lot of great work in the community. So let's go right into it. I know a lot of people know you as one of our coaches on the ZenBox app, but for those who don't know who Allan is, why don't you introduce yourself in your own words?
Yeah, well, just to say it is good to be here. It feels like this has been a long time coming, and thanks for hooking this up all the way from Southern California, you guys in Toronto. So I began my journey when I was about 16, got into meditation and have done many things to continue my understanding and my practice of it. And for the last 6 years or so, I have been focusing on bringing mindfulness to schools, into the classroom, working with students and teachers and showing them how they can use these practices to benefit them and to be a tool for them in an environment that is incredibly stressful, and as well as companies and organizations. And for the last 4 years, I've been involved in men's work. And they're kind of two paths that I walk at the same time, and both mean a lot to me. And I feel really honored and blessed to be, as you say, a voice for these things in our culture. And I'm thankful every day to be able to do what I do.
Amazing. A little bit about, our journey together over the last year, and one of the reasons why I thought it was so essential to have you be a part of this project was exactly what you just mentioned, which is, your focus on men's health. Over the last little while, I've noticed that although there is some offerings, throughout the wellness community, it's not as mainstream. It's not as forefront as a lot more of the women's issues that, especially on, tools that people use every day, like social media. You notice a lot more women kind of sharing their experiences and sharing their journeys, and not so much men. Why is that?
Yeah. Well, there's a few reasons, I think. One obvious one is that I think a lot of men have grown up being taught that it's not okay to share our inner experience. So we don't have a lot of practice with it. And another big reason is that women have been doing the work for a long time, and to some really good results. So you see women out there sharing their experience and being total badasses, and at the same time being totally vulnerable. And men are catching on. Especially living here in California, you see that it is something that is a growing movement of men realizing that there is something that needs to be done, that we do need to take responsibility for the challenges that we face, both societally and personally. And so it's a slowly, maybe not slowly, it's a growing movement Um, and I think as we see more and more people do that, especially more and more men take that responsibility and take that stand as a voice for other men, as a voice for themselves, we're going to see it proliferate. We're going to see more and more men take that position. Um, and it's important. It's really important.
Are you finding you're getting a good response, good traction with your work when you are introducing, men to it for the first time?
Yeah, everybody comes in at different levels. So somebody who is brand new is going to have a different experience than somebody who has been doing their personal, spiritual, psychological work. Um, I think there does take a level of insight into a personal experience to say like, okay, I do need some guidance. I do need some support. I do need somebody outside of just myself or my family unit. Um, and I think anybody who comes to the work has that insight. They have that yearning for like, okay, I need something. And oftentimes, the men who come into the work that I've experienced feel a sense of lack of understanding, of intimacy, specifically around masculinity, their masculinity or their relationship to masculinity. So somebody who's brand new at least has that understanding that like, okay, there's something that needs to be done here. Maybe they don't know exactly what it is. So to answer your question, yeah, I think anybody who does come to the work, even if they're brand new, there is a good response because they sense that, okay, I need some support.
No, that's completely understandable and makes a lot of sense. And my final question for this first portion here is like the demographic of men that you find are reaching out to you or wanting to try the work that you're doing. Is it diverse, or are you finding that is a certain personality traits are more likely to reach out or, make themselves a little bit more vulnerable and ask for
Mm.
help?
It's not as diverse as I would like it to be, um, and it depends on what communities you go to. Uh, a lot of the men that I work with, we work together online. And so it does make it available for men all over the world to come together. So in that sense, it is diverse. But um, I think it's people in the sort of 30 to 40 age range that I see the most in the work. Men who realize like, okay, maybe I've made some money and I have gotten the family and I've experienced some success and I still feel the way I feel. And I thought all those things externally would change that. And so I see a sort of general tendency for men in that age range to come into the work, but it's diverse. I mean, I got into the work when I was 22, and I was oftentimes the youngest guy in the room. Um, and now I see guys in their 20s coming in, and guys in the 50s and 60s as well. But I do think that for some uh, men of different ethnicities, at least from what they've told me, that they see that in their culture they experience more resistance on like a general level for men to seek outside support, um, because it's perceived in certain ways, or for whatever reason it's just a general sort of, they're more entrenched, um, and are conditioned to see that kind of thing as weak or just not something that they would do. So I think there's definitely a lot of work to be done to be able to make it accessible to everybody and anybody. Um, and I think in an organic way, it's growing towards that.
Yeah, I tend to see a lot of that here in Southern Ontario as well. So just from, the interactions I've had with, the community leaders that are starting workshops and events around men's wellness, it's kind of the same thing, but it's picking up. Every year you see the community
Mm-hmm.
grow bigger and bigger and bigger. There's a lot of amazing events that happen even just towards the end of the year last year that I noticed. I know I've been hogging all the questions to start, but I have one more that I want to ask. For our listeners, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. When you say the
Mm-hmm.
work, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
What is the work?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, men's work has been around for some time. And it really was a response to the work that women were doing. Let's like stay in North America as far as our topic, our geographical area of discussion, because I'm sure it's different across the world. But um, a sort of a men's movement occurred in the early '60s as a response to the psychological work that women were doing. They saw the issues at hand, and they banded together to like support each other in growing past societal limitations and personal limitations. And so men started doing that as well, and they pulled upon traditions and customs of uh, a lot of sort of the ceremonial aspects of Native American culture, um, initiatory aspects of cultures from around the world. Um, and it was also very much influenced by Jungian psychology. So shadow work and integrating the psyche. And nowadays very much, it's all of those things and more. And so there's emphasis on somatics and meditation practice and awareness practices. And in a way, the work stands for like an amalgamation of any kind of psycho-spiritual tool or experience um, that can be used for the benefit of an individual or for a group. And so it might be inner child work, or it might be working with some kind of trauma, or um, family constellation work. It really it's dependent on the facilitator or the group of people, the organization, what their flavor is going to be different. But you'll hear the term "the work" a lot. It's kind of just, in fact, there's a really great documentary called "The Work," which probably would give a better explanation than I just gave as to what you might experience in a men's group.
That's awesome.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Totally.
Okay. Yeah.
I wanted to take it back a little bit and just get a better understanding on how you would define mindfulness and a few exercises that could help build mindfulness in different ways.
Yeah. Well, the way I like to describe mindfulness is being aware in the present moment without judgment. So, in other terms, it could be paying attention on purpose. And it's both something that we can practice, we can get better at through practice, and it's also something that's innately in us. We all already have the capacity to be mindful. Many of us just happen to live in a culture that it's not really conducive to being mindful. So some things that we can do to become more mindful in our life. One is through basic meditation practice, which could involve simply sitting or lying down and placing our focus on one thing. And oftentimes that's the breath to begin with, just noticing our breath come in and go out. and noticing when our mind wanders away and then bringing it back helps to strengthen that capacity to be present, be aware of our minds and our bodies and our state moment to moment. And then there's actually in the app, I have what I call formal practices and informal practices. So formal practices would include like time that we set aside where we're, setting ourselves up to pay attention to that one thing, whether it's our breath or our body, or our emotions or our thoughts. And then those informal practices are ways that we can take those same principles of paying attention on purpose in the present moment without judgment and applying it to how we walk down the street or how we have a conversation or how we drink a cup of tea. But the essence of it is being present. And most of the time when we really check in with ourselves, we're not. And the mind is a subtle thing, so it takes a little bit of practice to get to the sense of like you can feel when your mind has gone away, and then being able to bring it back. That's sort of the essential practice of mindfulness in the way I define it.
I really love how you took, kind of a complex explanation, and then you gave us a very defined and easy to understand explanation. Like paying attention on purpose makes so much sense, especially when you think about somebody who's new to mindfulness or new to personal wellness in general. Like they can get that, paying attention on purpose. And that's what makes, to me, a great coach. When you can take complex learning and focus it and simplify it so that anybody anywhere can understand what you're trying to teach. And that's one of your gifts. And I found that during our conversations, you do that a lot. You would take a complex thought and focus it so that I could understand at your level, even though like I'm sure if you were speaking to a peer or somebody, another leader in the community, you might not say it in those ways, but you say it in a way that makes me feel like I'm on the same level as you, which encourages me to continue to want to learn more. So that's an amazing gift that you have in how you teach. And also just that some of the things you mentioned about, paying attention on purpose and having that connection between your mind and body, even though me and you have had the discussion about what that means in the East and what it means in the West.
Right.
Right. But recently, I've been really focusing on trying to essentially practice what I preach within, the app that we've developed and are continuing to develop. And one of the things is breath work and just understanding the difference between belly breathing and chest breathing. It took a long time.
Yeah.
Like it took a long time to get that. And then I realized that I'm actually a natural belly breather. Like, and it's
Everybody is.
Yeah, I feel like everyone is.
No, but there's some people who aren't
We're
though.
trained not to. No,
Like-
well, as a baby, we all do.
Yeah.
You watch a baby sleep, and you'll see their belly go up and down.
Even your pet, you watch your dog, like that's what's happening. But when people are stressed out and tight, right, that they start to change their natural state of being, right? And unless you
Well, the belly is
are
also very, very sensitive, right? And so by holding it tight, in a way, a lot of times it's like a protective mechanism.
yes,
Because to breathe fully, you're actually opening yourself to your experience. And I mean, physically, like your belly's got all your vital organs, right? And so by relaxing that and breathing fully, you're exposing your vulnerability
yes,
to the world.
Yeah, and
and
just-
than one.
and even just learning like the different techniques that are out there, like box breathing. Like at first, the first time I heard about it, I'm like, box breathing, like what are you talking about? And then I realized it's like a cadence, right? Then that's what creates that box, so to speak, that figurative box. And it's just interesting to use those techniques and how just learning how like the different breathing techniques can really help you center yourself and help you really focus, especially when you're in a situation where you need a little bit more mental and emotional resilience. It's important to have these tools to be able to achieve that state fairly quickly, right? And it doesn't take much. Like people think you have to be, sitting on a mountain somewhere in complete silence to be able to practice these methodologies, but you don't. And it's really, it's life-changing if you give it a chance.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Would you recommend, Allan, to these practices that we were just speaking about, breath work, meditation, for someone just getting started? Would you recommend they try these different exercises at a specific time of the day? I know it's very common practice for some people to do these types of exercises in the morning, maybe on their lunch hour. Would you say there's a particular time, or does it matter?
Yeah, I think there's some general good times like that are just most open, like people's beginning of their day and their end of the day, right? They're not at work usually, so we have a little bit more free time. For me, I start my day doing these kinds of practices because I find that I have a totally different experience throughout my day if I have done my practice or I haven't. And so I've just found through my own experience that I feel the most present and vital and alive and joyful when I take that time for myself in the morning. But for somebody that might not work, they might just want to get up right away and start doing their thing. And so the evening time might be more suitable. But it also, that's one part, is just how your day is structured. But the other piece is the purpose of your practice or the purpose of the exercise you might be doing. So, box breathing that Andre mentioned, you might not want to do that right before you go to sleep, because by basing on box breathing, you match your inhalation and your exhalation. And when we match our inhalation and our exhalation, it creates a sense of we're both awake and relaxed. So if we think about it, just backing up a little bit, our inhalation creates excitement. Our exhalation creates, in our nervous system, relaxation. And so there are certain exercises where you'll maximize or extend your exhalation, and that will create relaxation. Or you'll maximize your inhalation, and that will create a sense of excitement in the body. So it depends on what you want to do as well, right? And the more you practice, the more you get to see how these things affect your body, your nervous system, your mind, and you can start to say, okay, like this would be really great before I go into my meetings, because I always get stressed out. So doing this practice would be really awesome for me to be able to settle in and be calm and steady. Or this exercise would be really great before I go and get on stage, because I always get nervous. I need to have a little bit more excitement in my body. So I think it depends on what you're doing them for.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think some people just have this misconception of, like Andre said earlier, so a lot of people think, to meditate, you need to sit in a very quiet space alone, out maybe in the wilderness, or on a
anywhere but here.
specific area. Yeah. So for people, they may just feel like, well, this person or this leader or this particular coach recommends the morning, so I'm going to practice these types of exercises in the morning. But I love how it's just dependent on you as a person as well as the purpose of the practice.
Yeah.
So I love that how you were able to truly define that, because it does depend on everybody's unique scenario.
Yeah. And actually, Andre, whenever I talk to students, I tell them, if you take nothing else from our time together, it's to remember to breathe with your belly.
I like
so
that.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's so important to learn.
Yeah, it is. And even just like little tools, like understanding that it's not all meditation, and some of it is like haptics and touch. Like, being in a scenario where your mind is frantic, which then is gonna raise your heart rate and make your central nervous system be all like out of whack. Like different things, like tapping, like maybe your legs or your arms, or like just trying to center your focus, like take you away from that franticness. Like little things like that is what I've been learning, not only in practicing the programs that you created for us in the app, but like just doing my own research on top of that. Like I actually I went to a mindfulness workshop on Friday all day, and I learned so much from that. And it's, I'm going to be practicing some of the work that I learned there, every day. I have a little, I guess, calendar or log where I'm going to like log my practice to kind of help me get into a rhythm. What I have that a lot of people there, and they didn't know this, was like I also have the guided programs that we have in the app that you created for us. So I'm able to utilize that and have you guide me through, very formal practice, and then also going through some of the informal techniques that they gave us. So in 8 weeks, I'm going to go back, and then we're going to see like the progress that we've kind of made through that 8 weeks. So it's a great opportunity, again, going back to what I said earlier about practicing, what you preach. Like if you want, a result, right, you're going to have to put in the work. So that's what I'm trying to do now, is like really put in the work and experience this for myself as much as possible, and then continue to advocate for this type of practice. And honestly, it's unbelievable. Like just even in a short period of time, like I was using just the app prior to going to the seminar, but then understanding more about it has made me appreciate the work in the app even more, because I understand it more. I understand it more, and I understand the importance of it. And sometimes that's the missing piece, because someone can experience something like that was cool, but they don't understand how important it is, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to go out and learn more about the practice, so that when we do market it, when we do recommend it to other people, we're able to do it justice, and it's not just like, hey, because it's cool, it's something new, it's from Southern California.
Well, it's great that you're able to use it not only on its own, but as a supplemental tool as well. I think that's really important, because like we've been just talking about today, everybody's practice is going to be different, so they might incorporate different workshops and different courses while still utilizing the app.
Exactly. It's not meant to replace anything. Like it's meant to be a complementary tool to add on to give you easy access to tools that you can use to solve a problem, right? When like having a toolbox doesn't make you a mechanic. It doesn't make you a contractor, right? But having those tools ready, you might be able to fix a light that went out. You might be able to fix your dishwasher if you're that capable. It's the same thing here. Like you may not be a personal trainer or a psychologist or a life coach, but you have the tools there to be able to address things on the fly. And that's what ZenBox is all about.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Melissa.
The way I see it too, it also is a really nice foundation.
Exactly.
Especially for people who are brand new to this kind of thing. It kind of touches on the key elements to starting to build a life of wellness, of insight and self-awareness and health, that when you're just on your own without anybody there to say like, try this or do that, or, practice with this, you're kind of just swimming in a sea of information of, like YouTube videos, and you just have nowhere really trustworthy to go oftentimes.
Yeah, and you notice that in like all the different offerings that are populating, the web these days, whether it's wellness apps or entertainment apps, curation is a big part of this booming industry. Like people want a very specific, tailored experience that's individualized, right? You look at even entertainment like, Netflix or Hulu or whatever you're using, there's algorithms there that help curate what you see in front of you to your to what you like, right? Like I know on Netflix they have like percentage points based on like what you've already watched, like 93%, 70%. You're like, all right, recommended. I'm probably not gonna watch this, right? But you still have the ability to, on your own, go in and maybe try something new and open yourself up to something new. Just because the percentage points and the algorithm is saying you're not gonna like it. Sometimes I like to venture out and take a little risk and see if I like something else. And in the app, we have our general library, which is, falls under like body, mind, and guidance. And then we have our programs library, where we have very specific curated programs. We started out with our 6-week journey mapping program, which is important because before you start on a journey, it's good to have a plan, right? And we wanted to create that to help people create that plan and understand why they're doing something, right? Today on social media, I posted that, a piece of advice that I got from a lot of my coaches, which is commitment is very important in trying to achieve a goal. And the first part of that commitment is committing to a focused goal, right? So that's what we're trying to do with this 6-week journey map, is to help people find that goal that they're going to focus on. And then the second part of that commitment is committing to the journey, committing to seeing it through. Because it's not something that you're going to achieve in one day. Yeah. Like, Allan, you mentioned that you've been practicing since you're a teenager and you've been teaching since you're in your early 20s. That's a long time to get to where you are, right? And I'm not saying everybody's aspirations and ambitions are to be a practitioner like yourself, but I feel like even in our own journeys, in our own wellness, it's lifelong, right? The instructor that was teaching the workshop I was at, he was, I'm going to guess, in his 60s, and I've never met a more vibrant individual. This man was just energetic, youthful, and like, and he really attests a lot of it to the work that he's done. And him and his wife do work together. He says they wake up every morning and they do an hour of practice. Not saying that everyone has to do that. I'm sure he's had years of experience to get to that state, but like he talks about that. Like every morning they start off like that, or he travels a lot and he utilizes these tools to keep himself in check and keep himself focused, so that this rigorous life of like traveling all over North America and doing talks at different universities and different corporations doesn't take a toll on him, right? Especially at the age he's at now. But to me, he was more vibrant than anyone else in that room. So I wanted to know what it was all about, right? And he talked about 4 keys. I actually brought the little pamphlet with me. And the 4 keys were physical resilience, and it talks about maintaining a healthy nutrition, exercise regularly, get enough sleep, limit alcohol and nicotine use. This is one that's the easiest one for a lot of us to follow. And that's why it was the first offering in the app, like, which was focusing on your body, right? The physical body. So following that, number 2 was mental resilience. So practicing mindfulness exercises, cultivate a positive attitude, refrain from negative thinking, focusing attention on the outside, yourself. Instead of saying they, it's more I am aware, like being more within yourself. And exercising your brain was another component of mental resilience. Third pillar was emotional resilience, which was practice good listening skills, develop emotional literacy, manage emotional triggers, cultivate resilience, breath, and build your support team, like having, a tribe that you can rely on. And then 4 was spiritual resilience, which cultivate faith in spirituality, practice gratitude, forgiveness, and letting go, spending time in nature and or other enriching activities, and then volunteering and community service. So I recall that one of the things they did was, with every single one of these, they had stats. So this wasn't just some spiritual mumbo jumbo, as some people might say. They had stats to back it up. Like the last part, which was like the volunteering community service. People that help others tend to live longer. Like they have less stress because I forget what it was. I don't want to put words into their mouth, but it's that fulfillment. Yeah. It's that fulfillment. You guys can help me out with that. But yeah, it's that fulfillment. And it's true. Like when you help someone else, you feel good. Right. And it releases those happy hormones. Right. And I feel like it takes away more of those negative and not so happy and destructive hormones. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. What's the next question here? Okay. How did you get involved? Actually, I'll put this in a different way. Like, how did you go about creating your personal mindfulness practice and also the course that you teach as well?
Well, my personal practice, the first thing I did when I graduated college was go on a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And the first thing I did after that retreat was go on another one. And it's there that I got to take the time to focus on one thing, and that was meditation practice. So like 10 hours a day of practice, no talking, no eye contact, none of that. Just full on focus on this practice. And so there I developed a sense of discipline and an idea of actually what to do for the practice, and how to guide myself through my own personal practice. And it's something that I rely on every day. Those experiences that I've since have gone on other ones. But being able to take those dedicated days of just practicing obviously had an immense impact on me, just like it would anybody, right? If you, Andre, took 20 days and you just focused on fitness, like everything else in your life was taken care of, and all you had to do was just focus on your own personal fitness, you would develop a really strong, keen sense of what you would need, right? And you'd get good at it. And so that is the really valuable part of being able to go on retreat for meditation, is that most people are maybe only practicing like 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day or half an hour, and that's great. But imagine what would be possible if you spent 10 hours a day. It's by no means easy. It's in fact quite scary for most people, but it's some of the most well-spent days of my life. And it's informed me on how I practice, and as well how I formed the practice for the ZenBox app. I just thought about what are the foundational theories of why someone might practice mindfulness, what it is, where its roots come from. And then I did my best to synthesize what I know and what plenty of people before me and besides me have done to sort of take this practice that is in many ways, it's an essential practice of Buddhism. Mindfulness practices, you can find it in a lot of the world's religions, major religions and minor religions. But I took time to think about synthesizing those things into a way that a millennial might want to understand. And so I developed sort of the theory side of things, of why we do certain things, and the intentions behind the practices, and have an opportunity to better explain what the practices look like and how to set yourself up for success and all the rest. And then I wanted to have those guided practices where someone could say, okay, I understand the theory, I understand why I'm doing this, I've set myself up to kind of succeed, so to speak, and now I can practice, and I can kind of surrender to this guided experience and follow along, and ideally have those tools, have that understanding and that experience inside them, so that they don't have to rely on something outside of them. They can have that theory and the practice together, and then be able to use it when they need it.
Awesome. So what would you say the top 3 challenges are to building mindfulness?
The first one is distraction. Um, it's, I think it's probably the biggest challenge of our time right now is just the endless input of distraction that we're exposed to. And distraction is kind of the antithesis of mindfulness. And that's why going on a retreat is so valuable, is because you are able to dedicate yourself in a place and a time where you have no distractions. Like your sole focus is just the practice of mindfulness. So I think distraction is huge. Lack of proper understanding. I think a lot of people see mindfulness as like this magic bullet that's going to kind of cure everything, or like 2 minutes a day and it's going to keep the doctor away for the rest of their life, or like it's going to cure all their inner turmoil. So I think going back to our earlier part of our conversation of like having a strong mindfulness practice and at the same time not discounting other things that you might need to do for yourself, like getting physically fit, or exploring psychological issues that might be reoccurring for you, or mindset blocks that you might be experiencing. Not being afraid to go beyond just the one thing. I've seen a lot of people who are dedicated mindfulness practitioners who are like, this is my thing and this is all I need and I'm going to be great because of it. And they have some kind of glaring other issues that could be addressed. So distraction, how did I phrase the second one?
You lack of
proper understanding.
Yeah.
Right? Like not really understanding what it is. And then kind of going beyond that to how they apply it. And then the third, probably consistency. Mm-hmm. It's a new habit for most people, and it's challenging to build new habits, especially when we have our routines that we're in, healthy or otherwise. And yeah, I think having having accountability or having support to develop consistency in your mindfulness practice is really huge. And it's one thing that I think the app does really well, is it gives people a sense of external accountability to what they're setting out to do. That if we're just on our own, left to our own devices, it can be challenging.
Yeah, like you're not alone in the practice when you're utilizing tools like Zenbox. I feel like with anything in health and wellness, especially even if it's fitness or nutrition, once you're held accountable by a coach or a community, you just feel like you need to stick to the new routine that you're building for yourself, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think all of those are phenomenal examples of challenges. I feel like distraction, like you said, is number one, just because of there's so many distractions in the world today with our mobile devices, with our careers, just life in general. So being able to really focus on mindfulness and not getting distracted is definitely, I think, my number one challenge for me personally.
Yeah. Yeah, oftentimes we're practicing the opposite of mindfulness.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Like actively practicing the opposite.
Yeah, and like you said, we have to start paying attention on purpose, right?
Yeah.
Allan, thank you so much for taking the time today to really enlighten us on an important topic, talking about men's work and men's wellness, as well as mindfulness practice. I wanted to leave you with one question, for ourselves and for our listeners. What would be your biggest piece of advice for those wanting to, specifically for men wanting to start to practice more or take their wellness more seriously, and for those wanting to build their mindfulness practice. So it's two parts, like men's health and then mindfulness practice. Like, what would be your biggest advice for those trying to build those two pillars?
Well, I think the easy answer for the mindfulness practice is to go on a retreat, even if it's a day-long thing like the workshop that you went to. Taking some time to immerse yourself in the understanding and the practice where you're not distracted by outside things or responsibilities is far and away the most effective way to build mindfulness, because it really is like a muscle that we're either debilitating or strengthening. So any time that you take away to dedicate to it is going to go a long way. And if that just looks like taking 10 minutes a day in your room, or before work or when you get home, that's great. And if you can take a whole day or 5 days or 10 days, the effects are far deeper and far more profound. And I think it's something that needs to be said, because we're seeing this practice spread like wildfire through companies and schools and apps. And it's important that what's actually possible not be lost. Like, what's actually possible is not just feeling calm or feeling like, okay, I'm ready for this meeting, but it's understanding how our mind works and how it's connected to our body, and how we can develop our equanimity with things that are challenging, and developing compassion for ourselves and for other people. And I think to really get a solid feel and experience of that, it takes some time and some dedicated environments. So that would be my answer for the mindfulness piece. And I think the same thing goes for men's work. I think, we live in a society that values productivity. And so it can be challenging to do things that are beneficial for our well-being. And for men especially, it can be a sign of so many ideas around asking for help and our conditioning around looking weak in front of other people. And so it can be challenging to go and take that stand for ourselves and commit to whether it be going to a retreat for men or going to a men's group regularly. But I think, again, it's one of the most powerful things we can do is to find a group of people that we trust, that, if you're new to it, that can guide you through an experience. And for me personally, it will move. I've found that it moves things in me that I didn't know were there, and has been invaluable in my personal journey. But it's only happened because I've taken that time, and I've dedicated myself to going places where I can be guided. And so doing some research and seeing if there's some men's groups near you, or some people online providing content that you resonate with, that maybe they offer some kind of in-person thing. But despite the brilliance of the internet and our ability to receive things constantly, I think there's still no better way than to be in person, to have that experience where there's no computers, there's no screens. It's just you and the other people there, and committing yourself to that. So those are my answers.
Fantastic. Do you want to tell our listeners where they can find you in terms of your personal website? Do you have any scheduled workshops coming up that, maybe people that are going to be in those particular communities could attend? Anything like that you want to announce?
Yeah. I have my personal meditation site, LiveWise, LIVE, Wise, WISE, mindfulness.com. And then I'm a part of a men's work organization called Men's Wisdom Work, menswisdomwork.com. We have a men's coach training coming up pretty soon here, that's going to be amazing. It's guys from all over the world who have, some are brand new to the work, but most of whom have some experience in personal and spiritual growth and want to develop their skills further. We have a 6-month coach training that we offer online, and also has an immersion component. Guys come in to this little Ojai mountain town where I live, and we have 4 days of retreat time together. It's pretty amazing. And some immersions are coming up if you have listeners in the UK, we have something happening there in July that will be an immersion experience. And yeah.
Amazing. I look forward to continuing to follow your journey and speaking to you as often as possible. I know the last couple of months we didn't get to speak as much as we'd like, but every time we do, it's always a great conversation. So my brother, I appreciate you making the time today to not only speak to me, but also share your experiences and your expertise with everybody in this room, as well as our listeners. So for that, we appreciate you. And, have yourself a great rest of your day. And I'll be calling you soon, because I want to really talk to you about what I've been learning and, kind of pick your brain about some of the questions that I have.
That sounds great, man.
Thank you so much, Allan.
Yeah, thank you both, Melissa and Andre, and all of you there at the studio. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Allan. All right, you've been listening to the Discovery Podcast. We're being brought to you by ZenBox. Take control, download ZenBox on the App Store today, and begin your journey of discovery and self-elevation. I'm your host, Andre Paulo, my co-host, Melissa Spadafora, and we'll see you at the next episode.